So I'm going to ask the panel of experts to come up. First of all, Dan Gregory from Social Enterprise UK. Social Enterprise UK are the national body for social enterprise across the country, and they lobby and advocate and support.
Yeah.
Yeah? Anywhere you like, yeah, somewhere there. And Sarah Beaumont, who has been around in the social economy for even longer than I have, but she keeps reminding me that she's younger than me as well. So Sarah, as many of you know, is also the Chief Executive Officer of BSEC, and BSEC were an important part of the Social Economy Task Force and the work going forward. So Sarah runs the Social Economy Forum and the Social Economy Roundtables, where we invite the input from frontline organisations and experts in the plans that we do. For me, it's very important that the plans are grounded in the roots of the organisations. You need to tell us what you want, not the Combined Authority telling you what you should be doing. So Sarah will give her perspective of that. And finally, Nicola Steuer, there she is, hello. Nicola Steuer is the Deputy Chief Executive of Power to Change, and Nicola, or Power to Change rather, have been fairly instrumental, because I wouldn't be doing the job that I'm doing if I hadn't got their help and support. So I'm going to ask them to talk about their experience and their observations in supporting largely community businesses and some of the work that they're doing going forward. So, Dan, tell us all the good news about the social economy and how healthy and wealthy it is.
Thank you, Charles. So yeah, as Charles says, he's asked me to talk a little bit about the data. Actually, I'm slightly going to cheat, because each of you on your seats have a copy somewhere or under your seats, or you've already seen a kind of fact sheet of our latest research at Social Enterprise UK. I'm not going to read it out or talk through the numbers. I'll get you to do the homework a little bit. But this allows me, hopefully, the time to explain it, to contextualise it, to talk a little bit about what we're up to and how we can help social enterprises, particularly in the room, particularly across the region, and everything we do at SEUK really is to try and serve social enterprises. So just by way of introduction, my name's Dan. I work at Social Enterprise UK. We are the trade body or national association for social enterprises. We have about 3,500 members all across the UK. Some very small, some massive multi-million pound businesses. Some work very locally with one or two people. Some work internationally. They work in all sectors of the economy. Some sell coffee and chocolate. They run public services. They run community projects. They operate premises. They run the local shop. They do arts, leisure, culture, all kinds of different things. Really diverse group of businesses. So we try our best to support them as best we can, but it's, as diverse a sector as the UK economy as a whole. So we've grown that membership over time. And I think our job is basically just to do our best to serve them. My work at SEUK is often about research and data and policy. So I can say a little bit about this, but I'll also say a little bit about what it maybe is for and why we think it helps social enterprises. As I say, that's our main audience. That's who it exists for. That's who we're trying to help. So that's what I think this data is for, is ultimately to try and help social enterprises. Just to contextualise slightly on it says this is about social enterprises, but I have to say I'm really pleased to see the kind of badging here about the social economy in the West Midlands. Social Enterprise UK has a bunch of members who if we're a membership body, we have to have a test of who's in or who's out, who can join us and who doesn't. And it's funny to see the first discussion today was talking about definitions. What is a social economy? What does it mean to you? Jakira mentioned, with Jakira, I've been fortunate to be in international rooms where you go somewhere thousands of miles away, and the first question is, what is a social enterprise again? How do you define it? What does it mean? So just to be clear, for us as a membership body, we have a few tests, if you like, to determine what do we mean by social enterprise. But above all, these are organisations driven by some kind of social or environmental purpose. That's at their heart. They also happen to be businesses in some way. They're commercial entities that generate money through trading in markets, selling goods and services, contracts or fees. They put most or all of their profit back into that mission. In fact, 95+% of our members put all their profit back into that mission. And they're not governmental. Those are kind of our four tests. We're not talking about the public sector. But actually, SEUK and social enterprises are part of a wider, I guess, kind of Venn diagram, if you like, of cooperatives, mutuals, of trading charities, community groups, community business. So actually some of our work that we've done at SEUK is with that wider partnership of Cooperatives UK, Employee Ownership Association, Charity Finance Group, School for Social Entrepreneurs, Power to Change. And we have a sort of political lobbying group called the Future Economy Alliance, where we've tried to be as least confusing to government as possible and say, actually, all this stuff is about businesses that are trying to make the world a better place. So actually, we've also done quite a bit of research and data on that wider group. So I'm really pleased to see, not only in the West Midlands, in combined authorities and mayors in Bristol and Bath, in the west of England, in Greater Manchester, in West Yorkshire, similar programmes and efforts and energy and initiative based around that wider coalition of social economy, of business for good, of all kinds of organisations that exist with that primary purpose of trying to make the world a better place. I think you will see on this fact sheets data that will tell you whether it reinforces your perspective of social enterprise across the region. For me, it's just worth saying what this is. We have a national survey every couple of years of social enterprise across the UK. And what this is then we've done a sort of deep dive into certain regions and said, how does it look in the West Midlands? How does it look in the South West? And that allows you to have a bit of a sense of how does the sector look in this area compared to other places. And actually, on reflecting on this, I would say many of the sort of findings in the data actually are reflective of the national picture as a whole. It's not, something's not weird and particularly unusual happening here. There's some really positive, really encouraging, fantastic headlines that social enterprises across other parts of the UK also share. So in terms of financial performance, in terms of growing businesses, startups, the diversity of people running and leading social enterprises, being more often led by women, by working in disadvantaged areas, trying to themselves purchase socially and environmentally responsible in their supply chains. This is true of social enterprises across all of the UK, outperforming business as usual in this, and that's also true in the West Midlands. So the first finding really is that this is good news. And actually the international work we've done, I've been involved in 25 or so similar exercises in countries from Jamaica to Indonesia and Kyrgyzstan and Ghana, all over the world, Greece, India, different countries, all very diverse. Actually, they share the similar story. If you look at the results of the data and the research in those countries, some of them are big surveys, some small, some flawed, some have problems, but they all tell us this similar story of these are positive, growing businesses, diverse leaderships, meeting the Sustainable Development Goals, optimistic about the future, and so forth. So the main message here is actually you're not alone. This is, if you're running a social enterprise, it's tough. You're part of a movement across the region and across the world as a whole. Why do we do this? What's this for? I hope and believe that this is useful in at least three ways. So first of all, it's useful in terms of policy. So that might be the combined authority, that might be government departments, it might be a combined authority elsewhere. This gives us the data and the evidence base that allows policymakers to understand, okay, what are the challenges? It's good news, but there are challenges. What are the challenges that these organisations face? Is it procurement? Is it access to finance? Is it skills, property? In some of the work that I did around the world, I was actually quite gloomy. I'm quite a gloomy person sometimes. I was quite gloomy about what's the point of doing this data? And Jakira's former colleagues at the British Council would say, this is so that the policymakers, the economic ministry in Ghana or the Ministry of Finance in Malaysia, they'll take it seriously once we present the data. And I was like, I mean, we'll do the exercise, we'll collect the data. They're not going to change their minds. I was completely wrong. It's actually not the case. In many countries, Jamaica, Ethiopia, Ghana, Bangladesh, other countries, when we presented the data, it meant that ministers would say, oh, actually, what? How many? This 10,000? And they generate this much contribution to GDP and this many jobs. The data does make a difference to influencing policymakers. It can also be helpful to not to government and the state, but to other sort of bodies that help create that enabling environment for social enterprise. So it might be funders and investors. It might be business support providers. If they have this data and they can see actually there are particular issues here around organisations of this size or organisations working in these areas, they can tailor their support needs more accurately to be more helpful. So for many years, Social Enterprise UK has kind of been a critical friend of the investment market and the so-called social investment market, saying actually many of our members, they want relatively small amounts of investment. They're looking for 30, 40, 50k, and a lot of the investment that you can find if you go to social investors is 200, 300k. So we've provided that evidence, and that's changed the nature of investment. So the creation of something called the Access Foundation, you may have come across, was specifically designed to help provide smaller amounts of finance to social enterprise. So we can influence the funders. And then I think, finally, I hope and trust that as we get better at doing this research, I could talk for a long time about the flaws and the problems in the research. You know, it's sometimes smaller sample sizes, particularly when you get to the regional level. It's quite hard to draw conclusions from small sample sizes. The way that we survey, who do we reach? Is it really representative of the sector? You know, I'm the first to admit some of the problems with this. But as we get better with this, what SEUK is actually trying to do is create an exercise which is useful to social enterprises themselves. So rather than fill out our survey, I've got to fill out another survey, and then we do the work to analyse it, or maybe slightly better, fill out a survey and win a bar of chocolate or a laptop or something. People get tired of surveys. What we're trying to do is to make that exercise in filling out the survey useful back for the social enterprises, and actually feeding back to those that answered, this is how you're doing, and actually, here's the headlines for you. How do you stack up against other social enterprises? You're actually growing faster than most social enterprises. You're innovating. Your board looks quite diverse in terms of ethnicity and gender. That's quite good. But actually, it turns out that on the side of environmental procurement, you've told us that you're not doing a huge amount on that. And most social enterprises do something on environmentally sustainable procurement. So maybe we can feed back. This is an area that you could be looking at. Now, I don't know if that's useful for all social enterprises. Some have it hard enough as it is just running their business. They don't want us marking their homework. But for some social enterprises who, like many, are trying their best to meet that triple bottom line of social, environmental and financial, hopefully over time we can get even better at these surveys, at making them useful for social enterprises directly and help them improve their contribution. So yeah, I hope that it's useful for government, I hope it's useful for funding, I hope it's useful for social enterprises themselves. We know there's some flaws and some challenges with some of the data, but we're getting better at it every year. I'm really pleased to be part of this today and to see so many people in the room. Really grateful for Charles and the Combined Authorities' commitment in this space. And I hope that the data that we generate, very happy to follow up, and SEUK is very happy to follow up on any more specific questions on subsets of the data. I hope it's useful to help the Combined Authority, to help funders, businesses, public sector, help make those enabling conditions for social enterprise and the wider social economy even more enabling in future. And I hope that's how our data can contribute towards that.
Thank you very much, Don. That's really useful. Thank you. Data is everything. I was once told by somebody at the Combined Authority that it's not a shortage of money that's the problem, it's a shortage of argument. It's making the case for social economy organisations. So the more data and the more evidence we got, the better, really. That's what we're really lacking in. Nicola, I'm going to ask you to talk about Power to Change. Power to Change represent the community business element, so it's another aspect of social economy in addition to social enterprise. So it's just ask Nicola to share her thoughts and her views on the sector.
Brilliant to be here. Nice to see everyone today. I am going to talk a little bit about sort of Power to Change and how we collaborate, but I just wanted to start with a story or two maybe. And I guess, you know, sort of grounding a lot of what Dan has said and what we've already heard today about all the brilliant sort of social economy organisations that exist and are operating day in, day out in the West Midlands to make a difference, and collaborating very importantly across with other sectors. So I want to tell you first about an example of an organisation that is one of those organisations making up the social economy in the West Midlands. You might already know about it, and in many ways I very much hope that you do. But this organisation is called York Supplies. So it's a hardware store, does a bit of garden supplies as well, and it's in Kings Heath in Birmingham. And it's a sort of place that's been in existence for years and years. I think it's actually been going since about 74. And it's the type of place that, you know, if you've got one washer that you need to replace on your tap, or you need a bit of rubber to stick on the bottom of a chair or a table to stop it wobbling. It's that sort of place that you go in, and it's long served its community. So it's long been a local business that supported its community. And what was happening a couple of years ago is that the owners running it were approaching retirement, and the community were worried that that asset, that local business, was going to be lost to the community, the sort of place that you always like nip in when you're in the middle of something and you really need it. And so what happened is that the community, a few members of the community started to get together, and they ended up creating a certain form of a social business called a community benefit society, and they issued shares for community members to buy, minimum £100. Lots of members of the community bought shares in York Supplies, and it is now York Supplies cooperative, a community cooperative. So it is owned and run by the community, and essentially it's transitioned from being a local business in its community to being a local community business owned and run by the community, and people have got a stake in there. They retain that asset. It continues to generate wealth and put back into its sort of local economy, and off it goes. The other one that came to mind has already been mentioned this morning by Richard. So Whitton Lodge Community Association, again an example of a social economy organisation doing great things. Running, as we heard, over 200 homes for local community members. They've got a sheltered accommodation scheme. They are a community hub, so it's a place where they took over an old building, so brought that back into use, so community asset transfer. They've got a community hall, they've got meeting rooms, they are running health and wellbeing kind of services, employment and skills training kind of services. So a real community hub grounded in its place, if you like, and supporting a whole range of different sort of services and activities, and owning assets which are then sort of generating money back into the economy. So both of those are obviously just two examples, I guess, of what we're concerned about at Power to Change, which is around supporting community business. And there's so many different types of community business. So hopefully you get a bit of a flavour from those. But community businesses are running housing, they are providing transport, they are operating community-led newspapers, music venues, restaurants, cafes, community hubs, employment, training, health and wellbeing services, all sorts of things. Any element, if you like, of the economy, all areas of the sort of social economy plan, the growth plan. The social economy organisations and community businesses are in there. They've got a role to play. They are contributing. I think the other thing that's really important about them, and again we've heard this this morning, is that they are contributing economically, but they are also doing that very important thing about bridging the divide and bridging across to the social dimensions of life as well as the economic dimensions. So they are more likely in the social economy and as community businesses to be employing people that are further away from the labour market. They over 50p in every pound is reinvested in the local economy. Some of the recent research suggests that at least 3/4 of their workforce are drawn from that local community. They're more likely to be supporting volunteers and employees from more marginalised and minoritized communities, for example. All of those things, from a day-to-day point of view, are not why they exist. They're there. They need to provide as good a coffee as the Starbucks or the Cafe Nero or wherever it is you would perhaps go for your coffee to survive. They need to be providing as good a version of a transport option as you're getting from anything else. But they are doing these other things as well in a way that they're set up.
Anyone else got any questions?
Their business, which is bringing forward people that aren't, for all sorts of reasons, getting as many opportunities to be able to get involved, to run a business, to be employed by that sort of business, if you like. And so that sort of social community cohesion link across to the economy is super important, and essentially really, really believe that they are absolutely crucial to the efforts in the West Midlands to create that inclusive economy. So this is obviously stuff that we do a lot of at Power to Change. We've been backing community business for about 10 years or so. It's our 10th anniversary as an organisation next year. We've done that in many ways. We've helped to set up a number of community businesses through providing support or supporting others to provide sort of practical delivery programmes to do that, help them sustain and grow. We work England-wide, so we learn and we try to do that learning and that collaboration across sectors and across regions and across geographies, and we try to influence that sort of work back up, if you like, to national governments and think about what are the broader conditions, what are the policy levers that might help to unlock bigger change in this. In the West Midlands, we have, over the last kind of couple of years, been working very much in partnership with Charles and with the Combined Authority. So we had a couple of staff at Power to Change seconded alongside Charles and other colleagues to shape the social economy growth plan initially. So what is it that would actually is needed that would actually really support the region to grow its social economy? Those sort of 10 different components that we heard about earlier, if you like. What would that look like? We part fund the social economy lead role, so Charles' role at the Combined Authority, so that we've got grounded, embedded support in the region at that Combined Authority level so that we can really start to make things happen. And then we also support in practical ways where we can co-funding for actual initiatives. So some of the work at a local area level in terms of sort of the social economy clusters, which are really sort of embedded and rooted work within wards and neighbourhoods, if you like, that are helping community businesses, other social economy organisations, public sector, private sector, small businesses, corporates, local, regional, and where relevant, national governments to kind of come together, if you like. That whole ecosystem approach is really, really important. And what community businesses and other social economy organisations often say to us is, it is so busy, we've got our heads down, we are doing what we are doing on a day-to-day basis. But actually that ability to sort of convene and bring people together and create the opportunities, I guess, like today, is super valuable and something that we're not in a position to do sort of ourselves, if you like. So where we can help to do that, that's something that we're very much willing to support. I probably should stop there, but just to say we are around for the week. We are great advocates of the social economy drive for doing that thing, which is about raising awareness, demystifying what some of this social economy stuff is all about, helping anyone who wants to have a chat to think through, okay, well, I want to do something, or I want to do more, or I want to do different, how we can do that. So getting things going in practice, and then we're relevant when there's a bigger story to tell, or where there's bigger lessons to be learned, or bigger influencing to be done. Again, also thinking about the opportunities that we can take away, or we can partner with people to try to do that together as well, so that we continue to see the ongoing development and growth and thriving of the social economy in the region. So, thanks ever so much.
Okay. Thank you very much. I know that hardware store in Kingsheath really well because my son bought a fairly old house there about 5 years ago, and he's rubbish at DIY. So I keep getting phone calls. Dad, can you come around and fix this that's broken? So I've used that hardware store more times than I can remember. So I'm really glad it's safe, because I'd be hopeless without it. So I'm going to turn over to Sarah now, who is probably the most experienced and intelligent person that I know in terms of the social economy, at least anyway. And I've just been looking over her shoulder. She's got a thing called her shopping list. That's my to-do list, isn't it? Yeah. So I'm going to ask Sarah. Sarah runs the social economy forums and the round tables. She's worked in social enterprise for a long time, running them and supporting them. So I'm going to ask you to share your thoughts and your shopping list, obviously, as well. Thank you.
Thank you. It's great to be here, and I'm really delighted that the Combined Authority have picked up the social economy drive emphasis for you, and that we've got this week happening starting today. But I wanted to kick off to say to you that social economy drive is actually about a call to action. It was always about how can we help other people, residents, businesses, workers, visitors to understand what the social economy is and what their role is in it. And the calls to action are very much about, can I buy from a social enterprise? Can I work for a social enterprise? Or a social economy organisation? Can I volunteer with a social economy organisation? Can I invest in a social economy organisation? How can I be involved in this ecosystem that enables the sector to grow? And I wanted to kick off by asking you, how many social economy organisations have we got in the audience today? Could you stick your hand up? Brilliant, thank you. How many private sector people that work in the private sector have we got here? Brilliant. How many local authority people have we got here? Great, thank you, well done. How many residents of the West Midlands have we got here today? Brilliant. So you are all really key to the ecosystem, the effectiveness of the ecosystem. We've mentioned it a few times this morning. And the ecosystem is really about how we create a positive environment so the social economy can grow and we can maximise the social impact. And I think the thing about it is, although we've had the most amazing start through the combined authority, and we absolutely couldn't have got to the position that we're in without Charles's absolute drive and passion and ability to identify resources, it's actually all of our responsibility to make this ecosystem work. And it's about collaboration, that word again that we've been hearing this morning. So if you're a social economy organisation, you can provide peer support to others and help them. If you're a resident, you might want to think about volunteering or being a board member. If you're a private sector company, you could think about your supply chains and how you procure and how you can enable social economy organisations to access small contracts in ways that are easy for them, because they're often small organisations that are looking this way. If you're a local authority, you could think about how can you provide access to buildings, how can you find some bits of resources, how you can lever resources to enable social economy organisations to do what they need to do. If you're a business support organisation, if you're commissioning business support, can we think about how we do that differently? Because at the moment, it might be you get 10 hours or 12 hours on a specific programme, but that programme doesn't work for you because actually you're not going to be learning the things that help you solve the particular business problem that you've got. So can we do things in some different ways? Charles asked me to talk about ecosystem, and I think that's absolutely key. And it isn't just about having a shape that identifies what we're going to have: excellent procurement, excellent policy, excellent social access to social finance. Because if all those things don't happen, and if we don't understand how we make those things work, we're going to come to a sort of stuttering halt in terms of the progress that we've made. I think the other thing that I'd like to pick up on is data. And that actually we do absolutely need to know the numbers of social economy organisations in the region, and we do absolutely need to know what their turnover is. But we need to also know that if we're making interventions in the ecosystem, maybe by running a programme on social investment or running a programme on procurement, that we can measure the impact that intervention's making. Otherwise, we're wasting money and we're wasting resources. So I've got quite a lot to say about the ecosystem and what it works, but that's not to take away from the amazing work that's going on and the progress that we've made. And I was trying to think about, we've reached a point where we've had our framework for growth, which was developed by the sector, for the sector, and embraced by the West Midlands Combined Authority and Power to Change. But actually, what's the next step? What do we need to be doing next to continue the progress that we're making and to maximise on the energy? And as Charles said, I've got a list. I've always got a list. Because I think we have to be able to reflect. And part of my work with BSEC is to listen to what the social economy organisations are saying, what the infrastructure support organisations are saying, and also what the policymakers are saying in terms of where they think the needs are and what's happening. And one of the key things that we need is continued investment in this ecosystem. But we need to be reviewing the current contracts that have been let within it and the impact of those interventions, and maybe think about how we commission differently going forward, where organisations can win the contracts who have that place-based knowledge in geographical locations around the needs of the social economy organisations there. And at the moment, we're taking very much a higher level approach in terms of commissioning, and organisations are coming in from all over the country to do delivery, and they're not necessarily meeting the needs of those organisations at grassroots. I think we need increased investment in places. What we're seeing is, although we wrote about places 4 years ago, it's being picked up internationally in Europe. People are beginning to understand that by taking a place-based approach where you can bring together organisations to provide peer support, as I mentioned earlier. You can bring organisations together to collaborate, set up consortiums, win contracts, develop new products and services. It works far more effectively than, again, a large programme of support where people don't connect and make the relationships that help them grow their businesses. And we see in the SME sector that they do collaboration really well. And we need to be creating those environments where collaboration really works. So more money for place-based, please, Charles. I think we need to be seeing investment in consortia. We've got some really good consortia in Birmingham, but we're not seeing them working in other parts of the region. And actually, these tiny little organisations that need to earn money can, by collaborating, coming together in larger groups with an organisation taking the lead in terms of bidding, that can really propel organisations forward and give them a much better chance of winning those contracts going forward. And also, if it's a supply chain issue or a public sector issue, if there are larger numbers of organisations working together to give a contract, there's less risk because they can pick up the slack if there's any issues. I think we need to invest in capacity building and the development of sector-led infrastructure support. We do have a number of social enterprises that are delivering social economy support, but they're struggling because they are very lean contracts and it's very hard for them to provide training and support for those organisations that they need to be able to support social economy organisations effectively. We need a detailed route map. So if you can imagine, this is my plan really for the next year. If you can imagine a tube map with the different colours on it, and the red line leads you to social investment and details all the organisations that you can go to, and the blue line leads you to procurement and all the support that you can get for that, and the purple line leads you to governance and all the issues that you might have along that. I think that if we can just do that based on the conversation this morning, that would really help. All the organisations that come to the groups that we run always say it's hard to navigate to get through the system, and it needs to be local to the West Midlands so that West Midlands organisations can do that. And finally, last week we ran a really good conference around technology, and technology is the future. And we need to be embracing that and supporting organisations to have the capacity to think about how they run their businesses differently going forward. So that's all from me. I hope that's fallen on happy ears, Charles.
No, see, this is why I need her keeping an eye on me all the time, because my mum once told me that I've only got three qualities. One is I make a lot of noise, and secondly is I take up a lot of room, and the third thing is like I'm a bulldog and I won't give up once I've got my teeth into something. So if I keep doing that and she keeps feeding me the to-do list, we're going to be sorted in no time at all. Thank you. It's really, really helpful. Because I would agree with you. The place that I think, if we were actually going to tackle some of those areas of inequality in the region, which haven't changed in 50 years, they're still the same areas than when I came down in 1975 to the Midlands. If we don't go into those places and we don't do something, then we're not going to be able to do it. And the best people on the ground, I mean, I watch what Whitton Lodge are doing in CWCDA in Coventry and Access to Business as well. Absolutely amazing stuff. Really, really good in bringing people together. And just the act of bringing together those organisations has been really powerful. Because it's starting to spark off. There's 7,500 social economy organisations in the West Midlands. You can pick any social enterprise, and it doesn't actually know where the other 7,499 are. They don't know each other exists half the time. You bring them together, and it really sparks some energy. So I agree with you on all of those points. I think we should do that on the route map. Is a really good idea. It's a simple thing to do, actually. Can I thank Dan for coming up, and Nicola and Sarah for their input today.